Welcome back to Breaking Waves on another episode. I hope you guys have been having an amazing week. We have a very special guest on our show today. We have history with him. His name is Romero Tagi, and he has helped our business here at Bluwave. I wouldn't say early days, like maybe 2 years ago. Yeah. And I'm so happy that he's here to join us because I've been following his journey. He's been inspiring to me with the shift that he's made in his career. And we'll talk about that. So I first met Romero when he was working at Amotai. Yeah. And you hooked us up with some pretty cool gigs, got us money, and I'm pretty sure you're surrounded with small businesses as well who understand, those things are very helpful to everyone in our team. You've seen our office, very humble office. How are you? How are you this morning?
Yeah, good. I just like to thank the Bluwave team and yourself, Hana, for having me here today. As I walked in, I was like, yes, got the call up. I felt like I got the call up to the premier team. That's how I felt walking into this building and coming into this setup. As a podcaster myself, I love, and someone like that's learning about my own journey. Storytelling has been a really big part of how I built my career, but also made those connections. And I love meeting people that exchange the same energy that I'm about. And for me, I just posted up today on my story, like positive energy only. That's what I'm feeling here today. So
that's awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for bringing that positive energy into the office. So you used to work for Amotai, you used to work for supplier diversity, right?
Yeah, supplier diversity lead, yeah.
What made you, that's a good career.
Yeah.
Like, people work their way through university to get to positions like that. What made you want to leave?
Yeah, I guess for me, like, really privileged to be in a position to build my career and have a real supportive family. So I guess got to wind it back a bit. Right back to when my grandfather, I've kind of mentioned this on the other podcast, my grandfather and my grandparents migrated over in the 50s, like many other Pacific migrants back in that time. Come to the land of milk and honey. He built his empire from nothing, not being able to speak English. Worked in the factories like many of our family members did. And then he was able to buy his own home in Hotara, our family home. And start his own business. And I think because of that, my family were involved in business. My parents were involved in business in that environment growing up. They both became their own business owners. They've established their careers whilst raising me, as I'm the eldest of 10. And so I have a lot on my shoulders, but I was fortunate enough to also grow up in an environment where my parents were hustling and just trying to put bread on the table, and real fortunate to have those experience. And so my parents are entrepreneurs. My mum owns a marketing business. My dad's in business advisory, accounting. And so I've been kind of blessed in that sense where marketers tell stories, business advisory accountants are good with numbers. I'm not really the best at numbers, but like my dad's a really good visionary in terms of bringing those numbers into reality, and he does a lot with business as well. So that's a bit about my family background, but as I built myself up, I went to tertiary at AUT, the best uni, and I studied a business degree and majoring in marketing and a sport and rec degree. So one degree wasn't enough, I had to get two. And funny enough, in my cohort, I was the only Pacific to get that double degree. I think in a time and age where everyone's getting, it's getting more and more competitive, you had to kind of make yourself unique. And so I was lucky to have those 2 degrees, but also throughout my tertiary, I worked like I couldn't. I needed to work and gain experience because I knew that experience was going to be the point of difference. And so as I finished my tertiary education, I was fortunate enough to get a full-time job whilst finishing off my last semester, and I worked in the NGO space, working for Harbour Sport. And in that space, I delivered community programs, really found my passion for working with people. But at the same time, when funding got cut, a lot of these programs will end, and then what about the community? And so I was quite torn about that. And so that was something that was a key driver for me in terms of supporting the community and relationships, because a common saying, over the last few years has been the community never sleeps, right? When we've been through a lot over COVID and cyclones, and who was there? The community. And so I've always been passionate to work in the community. So I left that job and I went into government. So I worked with the Ministry of Pacific Peoples, and that was an eye-opener for me in terms of learning about the machinery of government, how policy can influence budgets and budget bids. And I guess going back to that role, I was able to develop experience. One of my highlights of working at NPP was actually doing briefings with the Prime Minister. Amazing. Yeah. And so I was able to build my career. At the same time, I was running my businesses. So I started up, in 2019, I started up a pop-up play with my wife as a way to kind of connect with the community as an extension of what I learned at Harbour Sport. And so I started getting funding. And this would be me rocking up to parks and connecting with people, bringing sports gear, and just because I was passionate about it, turned it into a business model, saw an opportunity, saw a gap, and not many people were doing it. And then I started contracting to council. And so I was building that over the last 6 years. And then during COVID, I saw an opportunity. This is whilst I was working my 9-to-5 job, to do beanies. For some reason, I wanted beanies for my my pop-up play business, but I couldn't find any local suppliers. So I was like, I'll source my own and design my own. And my first designs are quite crack up, but I managed to do it. And I was like, man, I see an opportunity at sports clubs. So and then I started making beanies for rugby clubs. And if you think about the number of people at rugby clubs, you get 600 plus max enrolled. And so I started off working with Ponsonby Rugby and a number of clubs in Auckland. And then, my first year of doing beanies, I made 20, 30K on the side, just doing that. And people know me as that beanie guy. So, Nice. Yeah, so I built my businesses through trial and error and just giving it a go. And then because of that, I've always had a drive. And so going back to your question, Hana, around why did I leave Amutai, that role within my role at Amutai, I used to work with a lot of businesses. And I used to meet people that will have cups of coffees and catch-ups, and they'll share their heart and their story. And I'd be so inspired about, man, you took a loan out of your house to go all in. You sleep at this time. You get to go on this trip. You get to enable a lifestyle that you want to live, and that really empowered me. And I was torn. And last year I met a business owner, and they were like, bro, you can do more. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So I registered my own company, RTS, Romero Solutions, and I didn't know what it was going to be about. And then I was kind of, because I'm quite faith-orientated, asking God, give me confirmation, what do you want me to do? And it was only until a church conference that I was at, and one of the bros, not knowing my situation, he said, oh bro, God put a word on my heart. You need to make a decision, and you need to make it now. That was a Thursday night. And I was like, oh my gosh, if that's any conviction from God and a sign, then, and for me, obedience was key. And so that was a Thursday night. Monday, I handed in my resignation. 4 weeks later, all in. So this time round, I had money there for the next, next block of that entrepreneurial season. So I did have I did have the wisdom there to stand my feet up and starting it. But it's been challenging, and really a God thing for me.
Beautiful.
So that has made my decision, and God taught me a lot so far in the journey. Just to trust in Him, and letting me meet people like yourself, and be on these kind of forums, and so privileged to share that too.
No, thank you for sharing that with us. That's such an interesting point that you bring up when you say you're asking God for confirmation. My doom scrolling on TikTok, I have a bunch of random videos coming up, and there was one with a similar situation where people feel stuck because they don't feel that their journey in life, career-wise, is not confirmed by God. And then someone else had commented from another pastor that said, you choose your career, considering that aligns with, biblical values, and then God helps you through whatever that thing is. And I was like, man, that was a hard thing for me to overcome. It took me 4 years. What am I supposed to do? And I kept hopping, because I like so many different things, and I also don't like being boxed Like to one, you have to be this for the rest of your life. So it's interesting that you tie your faith heavily to your journey now.
I'm like unapologetic, like I'm bold with my faith, and whenever I get the opportunity, because I remember like as I started to build a relationship with other like-minded men and people that are believers, we would talk about stories when you're at the forefront of the community, and when you get answered that question about God, what are you going to say? And I remember hearing a story from one of the bros from church who worked with another guy that was on TV, and they asked him, what wakes you up, or something along the lines of what drives you, what's your purpose? And my mate from church was watching live, and he had helped him through whatever he was going through, and God was a testament to him making that shift in his life to where he was at, and he didn't glorify God in that instance, and I hold that testimony dear to me, because if I had the opportunity to say who I am and why I do what I do, I always say it's because of God, and that's what is my foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's important. Like I think purpose, when you're like knowing what you want to do, I have a clear purpose now, and that is just to glorify God in the marketplace. And I think working in a career, I had an awesome job, like don't get me wrong, I was really privileged, but I just was hungry for more.
Yeah.
And the difference I can make doing what I'm doing now, even though it's 10 times harder, I wouldn't change it. And don't get me wrong, I do have those seasons where I do have those days and nights where I'm on seek. I'm like,
finding out, should I go back? Been there, bro, been there. We all have.
That's what I've been saying, and I've been kind of been whakama about it, like, but as I've been sharing with other entrepreneurs, they're like, bro, we'll all be there. And like, you know what's funny about the entrepreneurship journey is that through limitation brings innovation. That's something I've learned. And so when you're literally like, when you have like no money, like let's just say I've had tens of thousands of dollars in my bank account, then I've had the red dot in the bank account, all within the span, but God's pulled through every time, and if God's given the creativity in yourself to be able to, He's giving you these gifts, then and I started couch flipping.
Yes.
I follow this entrepreneur called Ryan Pineda. He's a Christian entrepreneur, multimillionaire. He's into property. Yeah. He runs a podcast called Wealthy Way, and he talks about how he started. He was a professional baseballer, but they get crumbs at the bottom. Like they don't get paid that well until you really crack it. So to supplement his income, he would couch flip. And I think the principles that I've learned in doing that is that if all goes to crap, I have my hands. I can have my hands to make money. And because I have the business knowledge, I learned how to make. I use it as a content, like a social experiment, to show my followers that you can start something from nothing. Yeah. And so I started building a series, and for some reason people love the couch flipping content. So I follow those content on TikTok. It's like just watching them back to back. Exactly, and so people love that, and so I kind of used it as a social experiment and talked about like business principles, like maximizing efficiency, systems and process. They're boring stuff, but making it look fun. So I've created a system where where I have like inventory that I need to get rid of because it's all about quick turnaround. Yeah. And I can clock up about 1,500 a week just flipping couches, because I have a van that doesn't get used because my events business is quiet at the moment. That's got to diversify and be innovative. And so 1,500
a week flipping couches, but it's not 40 hours of your time.
No, it's not. Right? So like in my meeting, so like that's why I like going to meetings out in town, because I had 2 meetings yesterday in town. Yeah. And I'll go pick up this couch in Herne Bay where they all got the flash couches. So it's not 40 hours. Like if anything, during my week, it's probably a good 5 hours. I staged them. I got a little set. So I made it efficient where I limit my time and I got other people.
Exactly. But but like 1,500 is like full-time work 1 week in 60. Like that's the opportunity I want people to see. Yeah. Like it is hard in the beginning, getting your eggs in a row and trying to find a way to make money, but you've just done it with like something old, furniture, right?
Yeah, and I think it's important like in business too. Like I've also like through leaving my job, the more I can learn, I'm like a sponge. Like I know I need to keep learning, because that drives me. And so like learning of other entrepreneurs, listening to podcast material that I align with, you learn how it's a change of mindset that you need to have.
Absolutely.
Like Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, he's got the 4 quadrants, right? You have your another book called The 4 Quadrants. You've got your employee, your self-employed. On the left quadrant, you got your building businesses and investing. And you know, if I've been reading a lot and learning about the wealthiest people in the world. A lot of their time they build businesses and they invest their money, and they let their money work for them. And so like growing up in an environment where I was lucky enough that I got everything I needed in my childhood, and went to a decent school. But I think for me, like, intergenerational wealth is really important and paving the way for my family. And you got to think bigger to do that. And so I've been from a mindset point of view. I've been like trying to learn from others, learning about business acquisition and how to use other people's, like, if you can make other people money, it makes you money. Like, that's what a lot of the richest people do. Like Elon Musk, he owns 10% in Tesla or something like that.
Yeah.
And the other 90 shares, but he makes bank. And so it's just about just thinking differently, because they don't teach you that in school,
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. How was your podcast journey? How's that going?
Yeah, so when I started,
And why did you want to start a podcast?
Yeah, well, it was another faith thing for me. Like, I was sitting in church, and the sermon was about relationships, and I was sitting there. I would say I have a lot of acquaintances, but not many friends. And so one of the things around building your Christian faith is about community, and I know how important community is, and being around people that believe in God. But also you can have your other friends that don't have that faith. But I was sitting in church yearning for that, and then God put an impression in my mind and said, hey, start a podcast. So I was like, okay God, I'll do that. So as I was starting up my businesses, to go out on my own, I was like, okay, I need to start a podcast. And I learned how podcasts you can kind of streamline your activity on social media, because I started learning about personal brand. And I'm not one, and maybe I look like it on social media, but I'm not one to be like put myself out there. I was cringing at myself.
I hate it.
Yeah.
Like that post that I posted this morning about, posting online is like business ghetto. It's the ghetto of business. And it's not just me, like I have other friends who are in business. They're like, I bloody hate posting, but they have to do it. So they would rather, these people who work really hard that I know, just would rather be in peace and keep their privacy to themselves. But they understand the nature of being online and how much it improves their brand. Yeah. So
I think especially like in learning my personal brand, like I post up the good and the bad. Like I'm not unashamed about like posting my failures, because we live in a society where, like, I've been saying this more and more often, like, people don't really resonate with like your triumphs and successes. They resonate with your pain because they can relate. And so I try to balance my content with relatability. Yeah. And also so the successes. And so as I started to build the podcast, people got to hear. So the reason behind the podcast too was I wanted to seek other relationships with like-minded individuals, so people in business, but people that are faith-driven. And so that was kind of the themes that I explore in my podcast. But what's funny about that journey is that technically I didn't know anything about podcasts. So YouTube was my best friend, but then actually putting a studio together, like getting a fit out. So I'm lucky I know a lot of people. And I was able to get a custom table, round table that fit the space perfectly. I got a 2x3 space. It may not look like that, but I had to figure out the lighting. Like, lighting makes a massive difference in terms of the quality of the video. And then coming to the software, I didn't even know what software to use. And so I originally wanted to get phones to do it, because you can film a podcast on a phone. But then the quality of the clips went, I was a bit ingle about it, so I was like, oh, nah. So I ended up getting a DJI Osmo Pocket, those cameras.
Are they good? I wanted to buy one. I saw them on TikTok.
They're so good. And so they're good for content creation, so I kind of use it for both purposes. But then I use them as webcams, which fire 4K And so I managed to figure that out, and then it was actually, so I got the technical stuff done, and then it was actually learning how to interview. Like, I would say I'm a good yarn, but for me, it's about providing values to the listeners, and also being like, everyone is, podcast is quite trendy now. Like, a lot of people are doing podcasts, and what's my point of difference? Well, I promote faith-driven entrepreneurs, and so I really tackle like how faith has helped a lot of people through their trials and tribulations, and I really get them to unpack those stories. And it's been great because a lot of people, some of my guests that have come through, a lot of people have commented and said, oh, I never knew them in that light. And so I think it's just a testament to me going through that process and learning, oh, this does work. And also from a social media point of view, like, podcasting is a great tool to build your presence on social media, because it's, you can, out of a 40-minute video, you can get 5 snippets, depending on if the guest, share some gold nuggets.
It's an easy way to post content. You don't have to come up with 5 different ideas. Have a good conversation.
And I guess in building my personal brand, it kind of built my audience and the type of people I want to work with. And so what's been great is I started posting on LinkedIn, and I've been getting people on LinkedIn following me and connecting with me. And so just trying to leverage off that.
Amazing.
And make those connections. So,
you're interviewing a lot of people and how God has helped them in their business journey and things like that. And you're right. When you start a podcast, you'll actually get a lot of people asking you, hey, can we come on to... And I think in the Pacific, like, if you look at, Balangis or Chinese, you look at their podcast space, they've got podcasts about everything. Films, whatever it is. When you come Samoa, it's very undertapped. Not undertapped. What is that? Some word. Untapped.
Clip that.
Undertaker. Can you make him rise from here, please? Ngale.
That's what happens when you start talking about Samoa.
So, anyways, the Pacific Island podcast scene is very untapped. Like, we have a lot of creators. We see a lot of our cool influencers online creating short videos, but if you were to search up like a historical psychology, theology podcast, it's very, like, there's a limited amount of us in that scene. So it's good that you're coming in with that. What are some of the challenges you face? You've shared some already, but what are like top 3 challenges?
I guess as every business owner would know, cash flow is king. And so it's like, as I started, so I started November 1st as a full-time entrepreneur, and I remember like the gratification of just opening the office door. I'm lucky I have my own office space, but I was able to open the office door, and I was just like feeling that sense of freedom, but there's highs and lows. And so I think reflecting on the challenges is getting constant work in cash flow, getting regular clients, but also at the same time building your waka. So I probably started going out on my own at probably not the best time, because it was November, December, Christmas. But I was lucky my events business is thriving during that period, and so it was trying to build something and let my clientele dictate how I should kind of create my core offering. So I haven't mentioned what I do, but I started Romero Tagi Solutions, RTS, as a way to help people get funding and through storytelling, because I saw a gap in the market, and a lot of people would ask me, oh, bro, how do you start this? How do I get funding? How do I start this? And so as a way of kind of monetizing my knowledge and sharing my knowledge over the last 6 years of me just doing and learning, I was able to turn it into a business model. And so I've kind of, in the last 5 months, I've kind of started just to refine what I actually want to do. And now that I know that I want to do, it's about going out and sell. And when you're a business owner, you're all the hats. Like I mentioned, you're the IT guy. There was a story I posted up. You're the IT guy, admin guy, the phone guy, delivery guy, dishwasher. Yeah. So getting clients and managing my time was a real big one for me. And I think for me, it was just getting into routine. So
routine is so important, eh?
Yeah, and I think going into entrepreneurship was always about creating a lifestyle that I wanted to live. So business should be about, this is what I believe, it should be about. If you want to be an entrepreneur and get into business, it should create a lifestyle that you want to live, rather than letting your the business dictate your lifestyle.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're just on the left side of the quadrant. You're an employee, self-employed, where you're dictated by your time and the stresses of a business. So, by all means, I haven't got it perfect, but I love that I can drop off my kids at 9:30 when they're more umi and need to wake up, go to school at 8:30. So I've always grown up being on the go, like wake up, go to school. But which is good, but also like for me, I want to have slow mornings, and my daughters can wake up and we can take our time and not feel rushed, and also have breakfast together. So I start my day from 10 and finish my day at 4. So when I pick them up, and then start it again at 9 and 10 p.m. when they go to sleep, as most entrepreneurs do. But I think I've got that on lock where I prioritize that, and that's really fulfilling. So that's one of my key drivers as well.
This episode is proudly sponsored by BlueNet, which is an internet service provider company that is dedicated to delivering high-speed, reliable and affordable broadband across Aotearoa. They take huge pride in their customer care and customer client services, and they are Pacific-owned and focused as well. So if you'd like to join, call this number here or visit www.bluenet.co.nz. Talking about routines, what does your routine look like? Yeah. Like, what are some things you have to do every day, or else you won't have a good day?
Well, I think you can be a routine person, but you have to be flexible too, especially when you have kids. I got 3 daughters under 4, and they all have certain needs and demands, and they're all at different stages. My routine in the morning is I try to wake up at 6:30, and I get myself ready. So that starts off my prayer of gratitude to start the day, getting ready for work. I tried to go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning, but I enjoy my sleep. I did that too much when I was playing rugby. So I go to the gym at 3 o'clock, right before I pick up my kids. And so that fits better with me. And then I get my kids ready, and then we have breakfast, drop them off to school. And then when I get into, if I got an office day, it's all about what am I going to do. So I have a whiteboard. I think every entrepreneur should have a whiteboard, Like have your goal for the month, and then break it down into micro goals, and that's what kind of filters. And for me and my wife, we have kind of a 10, 20, 30 year family plan that we have in our goals, and that kind of filters like how we move. But I'm quite fluid in terms of how that happens, but also trusting in God that God, if you've given us this plan, this vision for us, then we're going to trust in you that, because you can trust in God. It's funny, you can trust in God, but you got to action too. God gives you the wisdom to action things too. You can't just sit there and say, trust in God. You got to action. You got to have the wisdom and say, when I action things, it's all about, and I'm trying to get better at saying to myself, is this your will, Lord? Is this your will? Is this what you want me to do? Like being more prophetic about it. Something I'm still learning. So my working days from 9 to 4, pick up the kids and do the family thing in the night, and then by 10, have some time with my wife and watch a movie and chill, and then if I need to go do the late nights online. But that's kind of my routine. But one of the things that I said to my wife that when I went on all in was I want to go on holidays. So that's how I kind of filtered my revenue goal. And it's also what I do with a lot of my clients. Like, I get a lot of people that I meet that want to get into business, but I go, but why do you want to do it? Like, what's the driver? And they don't have a revenue goal. And I say, this is what I do. I want to go on 4 holidays a year with my family. I want to go on 2 holidays with my wife, celebrate our anniversary. I have certain parameters, and that gives me a number. Yeah. So if you want to go on 4 holidays and enjoy your trip, that might be a 10K trip. So that's about 60K for a trip. If I want to have 500 disposable income, and I have my expenses equals this and that, so my number's 200K. So 200K is my revenue goal, and then I break it down from there. Okay, if it's 200, then what are the services and businesses do I need to get that number? And so that's kind of how I filter. And that's what drives me to run my business. Otherwise, if you don't have purpose, just as we were mentioning before, it's hard to, like, when you have crap days or when you're in the trenches, so get out of the trench. So.
And I think it's also hard for people to find purpose. Yeah. See, like, and find purpose in their own lives, and a lot of people realize it late into their careers after they've made like top CEO positions. Like they have masterclasses to help CEOs who don't feel like they have a purpose anymore to get back on track because they've got there and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. But they're so valuable to the company, so the company puts them through something to like find their legs. So yeah, purpose is just so important, and I love when I have conversations with people about purpose. And clearly, you're showing a lot of your purpose is on God and family, which is really good. But you know, oftentimes you get people be like, I want to be in business because it's cool. I want to show everyone I'm a business owner. I want to be registered so I can say I'm a business owner. But like, and the reason why I don't like encouraging that kind of attitude, because sometimes it'll only last, there's not enough fuel in it because you're doing it for this reason. But if you're doing it for like freedom, you know, to have more time with your family, your kids, puts you in a better position to do what you want and you love, and you can help other people as well.
Yeah, I think there was a quote, I'll probably butcher the quote. That's the thing I learned about podcasting, is to recite your quotes all the time. So when your host like Hana says these things, you have that point and you have that quote. But the quote goes, you're talking about purpose, and like often if you like think of yourself and you're only motivated about your own desires and goals, that's not going to be enough to get you through. You got to think bigger than yourself. And so when I think about where I want to head and my purpose, it's always bigger than me.
Yeah.
And when I think bigger than me, then that's the driver. That's what's going to get me through. And so someone shared that to me, but sorry I can't quote you and
That's okay.
reference you.
It's probably your own written quote.
Probably my wife. She's the one always reminding me. She's like, I was the one that said that to you. So
that's a really good point. And that's why I love business people, because when you talk with them, it's just the conversation is not about self. Like, you can talk about it, but they're always thinking new ways how to reach different people or how to impact different markets and things like that.
I was talking about like a lot. There's dreamers and there's doers.
Yes.
There's I think that's the difference between like a lot of people in business as well. And as I'm kind of meeting more people, you can decipher the dreamers and the doers. Like, and often like the most successful people like work in silence, and they let their work speak for themselves. And I know a few people that I want on my podcast that have been silent, successful business owners. But those are the type of people I've been hanging out a lot as well around their journeys. They let their work speak for themselves. So it's good. It's good. I think you've got to have like a diverse, be open to other people and how they think, and then kind of take bits of what you like about what they do and implement it in your endeavours. And so, these are things that I'm learning in my journey so far, but it's been good.
What have you learned about leadership?
Yeah, when it comes to leadership, like I've always been in roles where I've been a leader, like, and one of the things, my leadership style is a lot of like leading by example. And so, like when I work with clients around helping their business or helping them grow their charitable trust, I wouldn't do anything that I haven't done myself, and that's a key thing. So that was a key thing about couch flipping. Like if I'm gonna talk to people about starting a business and like starting from scratch and giving them the belief they can do something, like then I'm gonna show people that I can do it, and that gives me the credibility. And so that's often quite like that's my leadership style. I'm a doer.
Yeah, love that.
I do what I'm going to say, and if I I'm not shy to admit that I've got it wrong, and that's the only way. And I look at like failures and stuff as learnings. And there was a point in my life where, like, a lot of my identity was in about pleasing others. So it was only until I became a father and like, learning about myself and my identity and the type of man I want to be, where I was able to figure out my lane, and I guess when you know your identity, it's easier to make decisions, because sometimes you meet people that are like an idol or like a yeah-nah person, and they're not like, they don't like, they're real indecisive and they're in limbo in terms of how they think and what they do. And I was like that at one time, like just trying things to please others until I figured out, this is what I want to do. This is what God's taught me to do. And then I was able to action. And so I guess, yeah, when we're talking about leadership, I'm a doer, but it always goes back to like your purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And people pleasing, I think a lot of people go through it. Like I've been through that stage as well. And I don't blame people for having that because of the digital society that we live in. Like we're seeing things so often. I think more than we should. And then things build up in our head and we have, so it's something that everyone goes through. But then when you overcome that, you become the doer because you stop caring about what Tom, Dick, and Harry have to say about whatever you're saying. You just do what you want to do. And that getting to that place is very difficult.
But you also have to expect it too. Like as you get bigger. And I know you guys have caught some flack with some of the things that have come through, but as you get bigger, it's going to happen. Like, and there's stories in the Bibles for days like that shows that, you know, and Jesus said you are going to get persecuted for, you know, for believing in
him.
Yeah.
Or speaking his word.
Yeah, exactly.
In any way.
So, you know, I don't get me wrong, I have those days where I'm like, oh, I'm an imposter. That's one thing in my podcast that's been real great and it's been gold. A lot of the guys that I've interviewed, we've talked about imposter syndrome and like, and I think it's important to have a good circle around you and catching yourself. As you were talking about people pleasing, and I was like, yeah, catching yourself when you feel like that. When you watch a video, I'm like, so like when I see other business owners doing me, like getting these contracts and whatnot, I'm like, sometimes I get like, oh man,
what about me?
Yeah, what about me? But you can't be like that. It's only,
a failure mindset is that. What about me?
It's always you versus you.
Yeah, exactly.
No one else is gonna do it for you, and so when you switch it back to yourself.
Yeah. It's such a good space to be in once you've conquered people pleasing. And I don't even like read comments. Only like at the end of every month, I'll go through the comments. So like I'll post and then I'm done. Like I don't want to see who reacted to it until like the end of the month. And then I'll round up, okay, these people engage this way, these people engage this way. Let's go this direction. We'll do more topics there. And also like dreaming and doing. Like I listened to a podcast recently that said, talking about your dreams is just a dopamine hit. So like you have people who just talk about it to feel good because it gives them the same hit like they've accomplished the thing they're talking about. So now I'm very good at differentiating like dreamers and doers. And it's such a good skill to have because dreamers, I'm not saying it's bad to dream. It's great to dream. But action and doing is a lot more valuable to me
there's that quote, dreams without goals just end up being dreams.
Dreams. And they just stay still almost. And like you, I like to do things even if they fail. Like I wish like my whole branding was about failure because I feel that would offer a lot more value to people than, hey, I got an Oscar. Don't have an Oscar.
You know what was funny? Like, I'm still under 1,000 followers. Hopefully, after you post this, Hana, I'll get over 1,000. But anyways, you know what's funny about that conversation? I actually had someone message me and it's like, bro, you shouldn't post, like out of the blue, man. Bro, you shouldn't post about failures. You know, you're known in the Pacific communities, and people don't want to see this. And I was like, respectfully, I was like, oh, thanks. You know, because I'm a nice person, just like that. Respectfully, I declined his advice, and it was just weird to get that kind of comments, and made me interested to, maybe just like people think like this.
True.
Yeah, but I can't be naive too. Naive to think that people have people have the same energy as me too. That's what I'm learning to not everyone is entrepreneur mindset. Like people, and the 9 to 5, being an employee, it may be fulfilling for others as well. And so that's the thing I'm learning too. Like what I'm doing is cool, but also other people, they get fulfillment and other things as well. So just acknowledging that. But I actually had someone come at me like that. It was interesting.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I have a very healthy relationship with failure. If I fail, I'll have a grieve about it. I'll pray about it. I'm over it like the next day, and then I'll move on. And I almost crave failure because I know those are the moments that transform me the most. So if I've had like 2 weeks and I haven't failed, I almost feel weird. I'm like, where's the thing that's supposed to go wrong? But then I go back and I'm like, oh, I didn't get up for my Bible routine, or I didn't go for a walk at the time, and I'm like, okay, do better. But failures are so important, and I feel like just a lot of people need to have a healthier relationship with it. Like when babies are brought into this world and they fall over and over again, they don't cry like over and over again every time. They just keep getting up and starting again. But as adults, you know, society, pressure, we often just criticize people for failing. I'm like, why? Like, why do we do that? To me, it's all hate. It's like,
well, it is. It's jealousy as well. Like, it's all these things that people, and often it's the people that are closest to you as well. Like, I'm not saying it's my family, but like, you know, like, is that crab in the bucket? When someone's that crab in the bucket analogy, when that crab is about to jump out the bucket and make it, you have all the other crabs bringing that crab down. So, but you like, as someone that's wanting to break out of that, you have to accept that that's what's going to happen and show grace. And I think in my business journey, where I used to get really anxious when I'd send a proposal or like deliver. So I sell beanies as well, sell goods. So I'll be like delivering a goods, and then they'll be like, send me an email back. Oh, there's a bit of a problem here with this stitch here, blah blah blah. And I used to get real anxious. Where I'd be like not hyperventilating, but just like heavy breathing. And I'm getting better, like I you know, and I think what I've learned, there was one moment where this customer was like real fed up with the fulfillment time, but you can't help it when, you know, there's delays in transit and whatnot, and so you know, you can communicate that. And then I remember delivering the goods to this person, and like, just I knew that she was a bit angry. And then I just showed grace. Hey, I'm sorry for this. This is why it's happened. But you know, luckily she was happy with the goods that I made for her. And then she wrote a mean review about what I did. But what I learned in that moment was just to show grace. Like, show grace to yourself. And humble yourself too. Don't be too proud. You know, pride is
pride is the devil.
It's sin. And so. You learn these things, but that's what business is so good about, teaching values. Like, I was lucky in rugby, going through the rugby system, where I learned about discipline and like goals and actions, and you get disappointed a lot in rugby. I haven't made certain teams, but I was able to learn that. But then business, man, puts you at the forefront of your own traumas. And because I was such a people pleaser, I was always like anxious about what people thought about it. But now you can't be like that in business. And I almost like crave like how, I wouldn't say volatile, but how like cutthroat, like when you're working commercial, is like, I remember sitting in a meeting and like I was underpaid, and me and my business partner rocks up, and how like heated things can get, but it can be professional at the same time. But business puts you at the forefront of those sort of situations, and it'll really question you, you know?
It does.
Your integrity and all that.
And I think, not on all occasions, not every experience is like this, but it requires a lot of selflessness to let go of people pleasing. Another podcast I watched, I'm like an avid podcast watcher, was saying when you get anxiety a lot, or you're worried about what everyone's thinking about you, it's very selfish. Because your mind has programmed itself to constantly think that everyone is thinking about you. And you have to unprogram yourself to be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. These people don't really care if I drop my sausage roll and the sauce went everywhere. It was like, so getting into that position requires a lot of releasing personal things that you want for yourself and thinking wider, the bigger picture.
So, and it starts with having that awareness. I remember my career, I won't go too deep in the story, but I remember I got burned in one of the roles that a project I had, and I felt like that was attached to my identity, and like in my head it blew up, and I just felt like, oh, I'm not good enough and whatnot, to a point where I was physically getting anxious, and like, because a lot of my roles have been about connecting with people, meeting people face to face, have cups of coffees and whatnot. I got to a point where I was sitting in the car park at work, and I physically couldn't breathe. Like I would get. It was funny because I can laugh about it now because I remember having meetings, in the meeting room, and like no windows, bright light, and I would blame just because I drank coffee and haven't had breakfast. Because I would get so hyperventilate where I would get like tight chest and feel like I'm gonna faint. And I was like, maybe I'm just overweight, too overweight. That probably was a factor too. But it happened to me on like 2 occasions, and I had like where my whole demeanor would change, where I'd be like close up and be like try to cut the meeting short, and then and I realized in those moments where I felt like I wasn't pleasing that person, or like because you know when you talk to people you can you can feel their vibe and their energy, but also like their demeanor and their non-verbal communication. So
did you feel like you're sensitive to people's energy?
I was. I was. And so every time I felt like, maybe this person doesn't like what I'm saying, I'd feel like I'll shut down, tight chest. And that's funny as I think about it, because I laugh about it because I actually thought like, too much coffee. I need to go do some training. I still needed training.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I started, I went to counselling and realised that's anxiety. And like, bro, it's taboo. You don't speak about that as a Samoan male.
Yeah, true.
And then I realised that, and then that's why I talk about the awareness of yourself and how you feel. And once I was able to be like, man, crap, that's anxiety. And then so I remember sitting in the car too, and I had to like amp myself up. And so this is how I was getting over the tight chest and meeting people. So I had to like focus on breathing and like affirmations. And then I'd sit in the meeting and I'd sit sideways like this, and like short sentences, and then like physically have to like put your chest up and like make yourself like bold in yourself to, you know, that's how I was training myself. So there was a period of a few months when I was in the trenches mentally, where I had to battle that with myself, and by the grace of God and my family and my support that I had, I was able to overcome that. But I think this is the first time I shared it on a podcast too. It's really important as males as well to kind of catch that, and that's my point around awareness, because I didn't even know what anxiety was, man, and then, until it hit me. So that's a good yarn.
Like how did you heal from that? How did you heal anxiety, or are you still going through it?
There's patches, but like for that instance, like you only can control what you control, and if you are so worried about everything else and not worrying about what God thinks about you, then you know that's you're worried about the fleshly things
of this world.
And so and that comes through maturity and experience. So, and being kind to yourself. You know, my wife has taught me how to do that. Like before I met my wife, I was like a rugged rugby player that didn't care about, you know, cutting my nails and doing my hair. Like I was just Now I'm more well groomed. I know how to do self care and like, but also self care with mentally, like being kind to yourself. And that's something that's taboo in our society, especially around Pacific males. And that's why when I meet and people like that know me, I'm always like encouraging. So I always speak life. There's speak life into people and be positive in the words that I use.
How important is, like, I know it's really important to you, but were there any critical moments that really shifted you to draw closer to God? There's been many moments where I've literally cried, like feeling sorry for myself and sitting there and like, oh God, what do I need to do? And I think in those instances it's about releasing and letting go, like, and that's the truth. That's the true thing around faith. Like faith is believing in what's unseen, right? And so if you are trying to do everything your own, and you know there's a scripture around, you know, do not lean into your own understanding, right? If you're trying to be the man and figure out what's going to happen next, you're not going to be able to have that faith, that boldly faith to trust in God. And so, you got to humble yourself. And I have those moments where I feel like I'm the man and trying to do everything myself. But again,
God
never
will humble you.
works. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the biggest humbling experience. Like being with Bluwave the last 4 to 5 years, and I've had my own business journeys as well. I've seen him too much in that journey for him to not believe that he's there. Like, there's been situations, I think Manu's spoken to about already, we should have been broke. We wouldn't even be here, but somehow we're still alive. We're still going, still doing podcasts, still have some sales going on. But God has delivered our company as well through some hectic trials, man. Politically, business-wise. So I'm so glad that I am in a company that prioritizes faith, and when shit goes down, we're not just like everyone's having a mental crisis. It's like everyone's cool. It's like, well, we'll just do the best we can today. We'll move on tomorrow. And I think that's such a good culture to have, especially in small businesses, because it's harder for them. I know a lot of them don't have a lot of capital to begin with.
That's why people like come to me, because when I say I can help you get funding, when they see that, they're like, oh, I need to go to this guy. But it's a different story too.
Yeah.
You can't rely on funding, but sorry.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't rely on funding. Under Labour, we're pretty good. We're pretty sus. National came in, boom.
Yeah, pivot.
Sure. So it's a good thing. Like I said before, I'm constantly seeking hardship. I want to do like a failure podcast, just all about failures. But so constantly seeking hardship. So when those situations do come up, we're kind of like, we're meant to go through this, so something better can come. And when bigger things happen, if we can't handle this small thing, right? Imagine what's ahead of us.
And God only gives you things that you can handle.
Exactly.
So when you feel like you're in the trenches and you're feeling sorry for yourself, I always catch myself and say, man, God, if you've given this to me, I know that I can handle it. I just need to lean more into you. And so, thank you. The last 5 months has been crazy, and I think perspective, having a perspective of things is really important. Like every day, my prayer in the morning is, thank you, Lord, for this new day. Thank you for the air that we breathe. Thank you for this roof over my head. When you put things into perspective, if you have those basic needs, if your kids are fed and they're happy, then like whatever's happening around you doesn't mean nothing.
Exactly.
And there's often, me and my wife always have this conversation around, if Jesus asked you to drop everything and come and follow him, would you? And it's a constant battle as a Christian living in this fleshly world. When you're having those internal dialogues with yourself around your faith and stuff. And so perspective is a key thing that I'm trying to implement in my life when things are tough, or you can look on another light. So when I get emails, I think there's another thing too, like I hate receiving emails after I've sent something, and because it's the fear of not knowing what they're gonna say. And so I've been working on that, and then when I get emails, if it's not the right email that I want to see or hear about, then it's just giving it some time. Because you'll have your own reaction, and then giving it some time, and then having perspective on it. And then oftentimes it's not that bad, And so that would be a key point to share too around perspective.
Yeah, perspective can change everything, man.
Yeah.
So good. Our minds are so powerful, eh? So you recently got your malu fair, and your wife got her malu. Please tell us about that journey. How was it?
Yeah, it was an awesome experience for me to be able to take that next step. Like, I guess over the last couple of years, I've been kind of doing more around like learning about myself and the man I want to be in terms of my Samoan culture as well. So I've been lucky to, over the last couple of years, get 2 matai titles. So Tamasao Noa from Samatau and Tulea 4 from Matanofo. And so in doing that, the next thing for me was to get a better, and the whole process of getting one too has been tough, like getting the blessings and having the discussion of family. But we were lucky that we had a course with Sunny Naisielu, who does a course on how to be the kausipea, and he was great. He taught us, more so my wife, because she was looking after me, like the processes, the falls, the history, and like giving you the history and meaning behind it and why we get it. Don't get me to recite don't get me to recite all of that because I probably lost a bit of it. But in terms of the journey, it was crazy. But then actually getting guard, man, I had a limited window for my sessions where I had to do it in 6 days. So these were one rest day, but back-to-back 10-hour sessions, 12-hour sessions. And everyone that I was talking to about getting a better, they said, yeah, you can't, just because you asked about what does it feel like, because I have no tattoos. Well, now I've got to tell. So the question you always ask leading up to was, what does it feel like? And everyone that was telling me said, oh, it's the worst pain you can ever feel. And it was like just every body part. But culturally and spiritually, it was unreal. Like I remember doing the start and lying down on the fella and like just being overcome with emotion and like I felt like I was at a dock, like a dock by the water, and I was about to go on this journey and I started crying in the pillow, like lying down, no one saw me. And then like the first tap was and then like I was in shock. So for the va'a, it was funny because it was like 2 hours for just the va'a, and I got, is that all? And I was like, man, I was already questioning myself, why am I doing this? And it was crazy to think how fast the doubt seeped in. And then I realized, like, because you can't have doubts knowing that you have to finish. And everyone has gone through this journey says, don't quit, don't stop. So in my head, I was never going to quit. So there was no point thinking about the doubt. So I got over that. But I had a number of like out of body experiences, and one of the bros mentioned to me before I got guard was, talk to your dead relatives. And I was like, hey, what do you mean, bro? And I've heard like you have like a spiritual, like it's a journey when you get your malofia. And so I remember visiting my late grandfather, my late uncle, and my late brother, and I could vividly see them like I could paint a picture, like how clear it was. And I asked my grandfather, oh, Ba, how do I become a man? Because that was the whole journey for me, like how to become a man, like in this earth, like as a Samoan male. And he didn't say anything, but now that I'm finished, the pain and the journey I went through that's how you become a man. But I had that multiple times, and then also there was another out of body experience where I was sitting there watching myself getting guard, and which was crazy. And then every part was different. The hardest part for me was the ribs and the knees. I remember, because you're lying down for so long, well for me it was 10 hours, and you're doing the legs and you're in uncomfortable positions, so you just feel everything. And with the kofunga, he won't stop midway through the line, he has to finish the line, going around the knee, so you can see the patterns while you're getting guard. And so in moments where I had those out of body experiences, I felt no pain. So it usually was triggered by music. So I remember when 5 Stars was playing, and I went to another place, which was Buzzy A. And so grateful for the journey, grateful for my hunga sanele. He was able to do that for us, and I think I've built a whole another set of resilience in terms of pain tolerance, but in terms of like going through that journey. And so
that's so crazy, the spiritual experience that you had.
Yeah.
See, that's like, I've heard so many stories of people sharing their spiritual experiences, whether it's whispering in the house or people knocking on the door and no one's there. And that's just so intriguing to me. Like, that's why I want to do it. Can I see my grandparents?
Well, so every night, like, there's the self-care component, which is really important for like getting the ink out, but also like how it looks, right?
Yeah.
And so after all of that in the evening, because you're meant to shower every 3 hours, and then for every 3 hours, so I didn't really get much sleep. But I would, as soon as I would rest and lie on the ground, I'd shake. Like you won't be physically shaking, but you'll feel yourself shaking every night. And it wasn't until the air cracked on my head that I stopped shaking.
What?
Yeah, like at night I had a good night rest that Saturday. We had the samanga, and so these are like the experiences I had. And I had dreams about me me getting a hit and whatnot. It's really traumatic too. Like,
Wait, you getting what? What was your dream?
it's just getting guard from so there's an au where on the quad it's called the kapulu, and the au is like this thick, like probably 40 needles, and like when he's carrying it, it's like he's hitting a nail into the little papa, you know, and so you just have that constant ringing of the tapping of the au. I still can hear it, like, but when I was going through that, it was constant tapping. But now if I think about it, I can definitely remember the tapping. But yeah, it's crazy.
That's congratulations.
Yeah.
On you and your wife. What about your wife? How did she take it?
Yeah, she was a champ. We did it a bit differently because like I was saying about my journey, I actually got sick. I got the worst sickness you can get for getting a tattoo. I got a skin infection. And so I was on antibiotics for a week. So she got guard first the Friday before the next week. And so she did her malu. But she was reading a book. So her experience was a little bit different. Like, it was a beautiful experience with her family and us just coming together. But she encouraged me to, like, because when you get the malu, there's only certain owls that they use. But the smaller owls is sore as too. Like, it feels like a steak knife stabbing you. That's how I describe it. Every time. So I know how she felt, especially around the knees, the back. But she took it like a champ, and that encouraged me to start on the following Monday. But it was a real bonding experience for us. She was my my supporter that was helping me every day, and so it's always been such a journey. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Romero, for coming onto the show. Just one more wrap-up question to ask you.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who's just on their journey to doing the thing that they want to do, but they're not quite there yet? What would your advice be to them?
This is often the closing question of most podcasts. And I kind of have a similar question on my podcast, but I think going back to, it all goes back to your purpose. And you may not be a believer of God or not, but if you really know your purpose to a point where you can paint a picture of what you need to do in this world, then you'll be able to kind of filter everything else in life. And so, before you get into a business or before you become a parent, figure out what type of person that you want to be on this earth and your purpose. So it might mean you might need to go on a pilgrimage or overseas trip, or like learn about different perspectives and views overseas. It might mean you need to shut off everyone for a month and work on yourself. I don't know, but I really feel find purpose in what you need to do and where you want to head, and that will be kind of the northern star that will put you in the right direction. You may tangent, you may go on other avenues, but as long as you have that northern star, your purpose, I feel like you'll be able to achieve what you want to do.